Help! My husband is set on destroying my life after our daughter took DNA test.
I am a 51-year-old man married to a 44-year-old woman. We have a wonderful daughter who would be turning 16 soon. By soon, I mean in a few weeks. We were all super excited about it until there was something that ruined my beautiful family, as the truth came crashing down on us. Well, mostly on me and Molly. Me and my wife, Audrey, have been married for 26 years. After a lot of attempts at having kids, we were finally blessed with a baby girl whom we named Molly. She was the apple of our eye and the most beautiful blessing from God. Molly brought immense joy and fulfillment to our lives, filling our home with laughter and love. We cherished every moment spent with her, grateful for the precious gift of parenthood that we had longed for. Anyway, this post is not about our happy family or about Molly, my daughter. It's about the betrayal of my wife. My daughter had taken a DNA test and found out that I am not her biological father. This led to a lot of back and forth between me and my wife. I got to know about the cheating nature of my wife, who had put me in the blind for almost the entire marriage. I would not let this go so easily, so I decided to get my revenge. This is how I went about getting it. I met Audrey when I was 22 at an event that was being hosted for upcoming entrepreneurs. She was one of the volunteers who were responsible for making sure that everyone was seated before the presentation started. She mistook me for one of the speakers and took me to the VIP section. I was taken aback and tried to explain to her that I was not one of the presenters. She winked at me and walked away. I understood that it was not a mistake, but a genuine interest that she showed in me. I smiled back and took a seat in the VIP area. She slid me a tissue with her number on it, and we bumped each other after she got off work. It was a one-time thing, and I forgot about it after a while. When I was doing my laundry, I found the tissue with Audrey's number on it and hit her up. I had nothing much going on, so I could do away with blowing some steam off. We started seeing each other often and grew physically attracted to each other. We would meet each other quite often, and oh boy, the sex was getting better and better. At that time, she was working for a fashion magazine. She had odd working hours, and she met a lot of models for interviews. I never expected that things between us would get anything serious. It was just a fling that we both were enjoying. Things took a drastic turn one day when she said that we should start thinking of a serious relationship. I was only 25 and was not financially ready to tie the knot. I argued that we were too young and should focus on our careers. I was just getting started with my business and was not ready for added responsibilities. She assured me that we both could work and save enough to buy a house and secure our future. Till today, I have no idea what she saw in me and why she ever wanted to get married to me. I know that I look like a decent and gullible guy who would trust you without asking questions. So maybe that was the reason. After further discussions, we decided to get married. We had a very simple wedding with close friends and family. Our marriage was like how they show it in the movies. Great sex, great support, and great conversations. Everything was going great for almost 2 years. We were very keen on starting a family as we had been financially stable for quite a while now. We had been trying to get pregnant for almost a year. However, despite our efforts, we were unable to conceive. This unexpected turn of events started to put a strain on our relationship, and we began to have a lot of arguments about it, even blaming each other for not giving their 100%. Things were not as smooth between us as it had previously been. My wife started working late hours at her magazine company and spending less and less time at home. The times she was home, we had very little interactions and tried to avoid conversations which would lead to conflicts. I knew that we were drifting apart, and this was not how I wanted to deal with difficult times. I decided that Audrey and I had to sit and talk it out to come to a conclusion. We did get that much needed time during Thanksgiving to spend time with each other and find a solution. We decided that we would try and seek medical help to know the reason for not being able to have a baby. After the doctor's visit, we were both filled with positivity and decided to do everything that we possibly could to help us get through with having a baby. Despite all my attempts to remind Audrey that she needs to slow down with her work, she did not pay any heed to it. She was still working overtime and on a lot of projects at the same time. This was a constant argument between us. She said that she would do 2 last projects and then focus on having a baby. I did put myself in her shoes and thought that it would be good to give her a break. So she now was not only coming late, but at times staying back at the office more often than not. I tried to talk to her about it, but she said that it was easier to stay and complete her work than traveling to and from work. It was not something I was a fan of, but there was not much I could say or do, so I just let it be. One day I saw that one of her colleagues was dropping her off at 3 in the morning. I was not so narrow-minded to question this, but what I saw raised an eyebrow. He gave her a peck on her cheek as he left. This was very unusual for someone who was just a colleague. I immediately asked Audrey about it, and she said that it was nothing that I had to worry about, it was just a peck, and that I was taking it too far. She said that it was a common thing in the fashion industry, and I was reading too much into it. I asked her if she would be okay with being so close to another female, and she said she did not mind. She knew me too well to suspect that there was something going on. This made me feel ashamed for doubting her. I thought that I should do something to make up for it. So I planned a weekend getaway as a surprise so that I could apologize for my actions. On Friday, I asked her to come home early as there was something I wanted to talk to her about. When I broke the news about a weekend away in tranquility, she was not very pleased. Well, this was not the reaction that I was looking for. It made me confused as to why she would not be happy spending a weekend with me. I mean, lately we were spending less and less time together. This would be a perfect opportunity to catch up. I asked her up front if there was something wrong. She said that there was nothing wrong, but she was planning to get the house cleaned over the weekend. I was even more confused. We could always do that the next weekend. Anyway, we left for the resort that I had booked. I could sense Audrey being distant and always on her phone the entire time. It could not be just the cleaning that was bothering her. Maybe it was something else that she wasn't sharing with me. When she went to take a shower, I saw messages from one of my colleagues constantly popping up on her phone. I tried to ignore it, but it kept distracting me, so I thought that I would just let them know that she is busy. As I looked at the messages, one particular message piqued my interest. It read, "Baby, how long do I have to stay away from you? We had plans this weekend and you ditched me." That's interesting. I checked the name, which read Tiffany. I was not aware of Tiffany working with Audrey. When Audrey was out of the shower, I told her that Tiffany messaged her and she froze. I told her that why did she not mention her plans, for which she said that Tiffany was someone new and had no friends or family to spend time with, so Audrey suggested to spend time with her. I was a little skeptical about it, but I never had a reason to doubt Audrey. She never lied to me, and I knew she always wanted to help people out. I asked her to invite Tiffany for lunch or dinner so that she feels less lonely. She gave me a very meek response and never spoke about Tiffany ever. I noticed that after the Tiffany episode, Audrey had been spending more time at home and trying to initiate conversations with me. I was happy that we were slowly getting on track with our relationship. Things were getting better and the bedroom was getting spicier, just like old times. I was really happy about it. This could lead to us focusing on starting a family. Audrey had started to focus more on family time with me, and we were going out more often than not and pouncing on every opportunity we got at lovemaking with the end goal of having a baby. I had no complaints from Audrey as her erratic work schedules had drastically reduced. They used to be one-off times when she would stay late after her usual work hours to finish something off. This was something that I could live with, as it was not a frequent occurrence. I didn't even want to pressurize her so much into having a baby that she is mentally burdened by it. After trying for almost 2 years, we finally received the good news when one morning, as per our ritual, my wife had a pregnancy test to check the results. We were ecstatic, and the feeling of soon-to-be parents was out of the world. We couldn't contain our joy as we eagerly anticipated the arrival of our little bundle of joy. The anticipation and excitement filled every moment of our lives, making each day more magical than the last. We would share books and videos with each other on how to go about the pregnancy. I tried to make myself available as much as possible for my wife during this time. My wife had taken a break from her work when she was 6 months pregnant, so that there were no complications during childbirth. The gender reveal party was something we were very excited about. We had our close friends and family gather at our house to share this news with them. Everyone was elated to know that we would be having a cute little girl with us very soon. After a long labor and a stressful 2 days of anticipation, our baby girl finally arrived in this world. When I first took her in my hands, I couldn't contain my tears. It was a moment of overwhelming joy and love as I held our precious daughter close to my chest. In that instant, I knew that our lives had changed forever, and that this little bundle of joy would bring us endless happiness. We named her Molly based on our favorite character. As she grew old, I could see that Molly had nothing similar to me. Though she looked a lot like a startling image of her mother, she missed the qualities and looks that she should have inherited from me. It did bother me, and I also felt a little sad about it, but I was just grateful that she gave me the joy of being her father. After Molly turned 5, Audrey resumed working for a magazine as a PR person. She was slowly getting back to her work, which she enjoyed the most, and I was very supportive to see her happy. As years went by, she became the lead PR manager. This led to her being too busy often. Molly would be turning 16 soon, and I wanted her mother to be there to give her the girl talk. It had been irking that Audrey had been quite defensive about her phone lately. She was working late, always carrying her phone around, even to the bathroom. I scoured the internet to find out the signs for a cheating partner, and Audrey had been ticking all of the boxes for it. I could see that Audrey was more involved in her job than focusing on Molly's transformation into a fine lady. Molly would pretty much do things by herself, and Audrey hardly showed or helped her with all the girl stuff. It did cause a bit of clashes between us regarding this. Molly was not so close to her mother as much as I tried to reason with her, regarding her mom being unavailable for her needs. She was growing into a rebellious teen, and Audrey's distant behavior was not helping with the situation. There had been lots of arguments between them, and my job was to diffuse the tension. I did try to sit and talk with Audrey about Molly, but she dismissed me, stating that all teens behaved this way growing up, and it was nothing to worry about. Molly had a growing suspicion that Audrey may not be her real mother, and that was the reason she did not pay much attention to her. I tried to show Molly all the proof of Audrey's pregnancy and all the pictures that we had taken during that time, but Molly was way too adamant that she believed that there was no way that Audrey could be her real mother. When Molly turned 16, she secretly conducted a DNA test to check if she was in fact our daughter. The results were shocking. It showed that her DNA had 0.001% match with mine. I knew what it meant. She showed me the results before she could reveal it to Audrey. I was dumbfounded, but deep down I knew somewhere that this was coming. I loved Audrey as my own daughter, and I would always do that no matter what a stupid piece of paper says about our relationship. I had my doubts, but I never let that waver my faith in Audrey. I mean, we did have a difficult time conceiving and having a baby. I don't think that Audrey would have done something like this to me. I had always believed in Audrey's loyalty and commitment to our relationship, especially considering the challenges we faced in trying to have a child together. Despite the shocking revelation of the results, I couldn't bring myself to doubt her intentions. However, a part of me couldn't help but wonder if there was more to this situation that I hadn't yet discovered. Molly was wailing after getting to know this truth. She was inconsolable. I could not see tears in Molly's eyes. I decided to not let this revelation hamper the relationship I shared with Molly. Molly was happy to have me as her father, and there was not a shred of doubt in her about me not being her father. She still loved me, and no matter what happens, I would always be her father. With Molly at my side, I knew that I could not just leave almost 2 decades of betrayal just like that. It was time for action. I had to formulate a plan to take revenge on my wife. I could not let it slide so easily after all that she had done. With Molly on my side, I knew I could achieve anything that I put my mind to. Molly, my trusted confidant and ally, had always been by my side through thick and thin. Together, we brainstormed ideas and devised a meticulous plan to expose Audrey's deceit and make her pay for her actions. We were determined to unveil the truth and ensure that Audrey pays for her actions. First off, she cheated on me by not letting me know that the baby she was carrying was not mine. Second, she was cheating on me with another guy named Eric for almost a year now. So I met the guy she was dating who was way younger than her. He was an upcoming model, and she told him that he needs to put himself out there to be successful, and she could help him with that. She told him that if he would cooperate with her, she could get him more modeling jobs and even acting gigs to help boost his career. He had no other choice but to agree to her proposal. She was the one who was quite demanding and always decided on where to meet and when to have sex. I understood that this was not a mutual relationship and that Audrey was taking advantage of the poor guy. I looped him into our revenge plans and he instantly agreed. He wanted to get rid of her as much as I wanted it. I felt bad for the guy, though, but I knew I couldn't go weak and carry out the revenge as planned. I had to be very careful of not letting my wife know that Molly and I were aware of the secret she had been hiding for all these years. I knew what I wanted to do. I told Audrey that her 45th birthday is going to be epic. I was planning a big surprise for her. She was still unaware of what was in store for her. As the days leading up to Audrey's birthday approached, I enlisted Molly's help in organizing the surprise party. We meticulously planned every detail, ensuring that Audrey remained clueless about our secret mission. I wanted it to be a day that she would never forget for her entire life. I started to dig into details to find out the real father. I had to go back almost 2 decades to solve this mystery. I was racking my brain to come up with possible suspects that could fit the bill. Molly suggested that we look at old pictures that could give us a head start. It was not a bad idea. I knew my baby girl was smart. We started looking at old pictures of Audrey around the time when she got pregnant with Molly. There was one picture that caught both our attention and cleared our doubts. There was a stark resemblance between Molly and the guy in the picture. I tried to get details of this guy from Audrey's friends from her previous magazine. They were able to provide some information about him, including his name and occupation. With this new lead, Molly and I decided to dig deeper into his background and try to track him down. We were determined to find out if he was indeed Molly's biological father. We got in touch with him and decided to meet with him. Molly was insistent that she would like to come along. I couldn't say no, as he could be her potential father, so I had no choice but to take her with me. We waited for the guy at a cafe, which was not one of the suburbs we visited, to make sure we didn't run into Audrey. As we waited, we saw a young man in his late 30s walking towards us. We did not even need a DNA test to confirm that he was Molly's potential father. The resemblance between them was striking, from their shared smile to the way they both walked with a slight bounce in their step. He introduced himself as Richard. I shook his hand and we both sat. He knew even before I spoke what this was about. He told me if I remembered anyone by the name Tiffany. It took me a while, and then I recalled something about a new colleague that Audrey had at the time when we were trying to get pregnant. Richard told me that Audrey had saved his name as Tiffany, so that I would not suspect anything going on between them. It was a very cunning move. As Richard revealed this, I felt a mix of shock and betrayal wash over me. It was hard to believe that Audrey had been hiding an affair right under my nose. So Audrey knew that I could be suspicious, and she had no intention of coming clean about her affair. This agitated me even further, and I was much more determined about making her pay. He told us that Audrey was the one who said that she would deal with the pregnancy and tell her husband that the baby was his. She asked him to keep quiet as she would be taking a break from work, so there was nothing Richard had to worry about. Richard told us that, after Molly was born, he tried to meet with Audrey, who blocked him and wanted nothing to do with him. He felt guilty about doing this to me, so he left his job and relocated to a different place. At least someone had a conscience, but unfortunately it was not Audrey. How I wished it to be Audrey. I would have forgiven her for the affair if she had come clean to me about it. I loved her way too much, and she was going to be giving birth to a baby, which we had been desperately waiting for. I wished she would trust me enough to have spoken the truth. Anyway, I asked him if he could help us plan something for Audrey. I told him that he could share anything that he had from the time he was goofing around with Audrey to help us confront her. She said it was a long time ago and that he might have to get back to us on it. I told him to take his time, but if he finds something, anything, even if it's small, would help us greatly. He agreed to look into it and try his best to help us as much as he could. We bid our farewell and started our plan. On the day of Audrey's birthday, we asked her to go to a hotel where we had booked a spa and beauty session for her to pamper herself. The party would be held in the evening in the ballroom of the same hotel. She could take her time in getting herself ready, as everything has already been organized for her, from clothes to makeup to jewelry, and she had nothing to worry about. She was so excited about it and left us to continue our preparations. She had no idea what she was going to be hit with, and I loved every bit of it. I had invited each and every person, even someone who barely knew her. I wanted no one on her side when all this was over. It was evening and guests started pouring in. Finally, the star of the evening, Audrey, had arrived. Everyone clapped as she walked through the crowd. After some time when the setup was ready, I gathered everyone's attention and called Audrey at the center. We set up a small platform for her to stand under the spotlight. I started with how I knew Audrey for the past 30 years, and how she changed my life since the day she met me, blah, blah, blah. I put up a projector which showed pictures of our journey together. Molly was in charge of what came up on the projector. It started with pictures of me and Audrey, then of the three of us together as a happy family. I knew by this time I had everyone's attention on both Audrey and the pictures. Now it was time to spice it up. I started talking about how Molly looked so different from me, and then came up on the projector Molly's DNA report, which showed that I was not her father. This led to loud gasps and whispers within the people attending the party. This was followed by pictures of her and Richard being intimate and lovey-dovey. This led to further commotion in the crowd. Then I showed everyone the pictures of Audrey and her current model boyfriend, who was just 21. This caused the entire crowd to go crazy. Audrey stood there frozen at the revelations that were coming to the surface. She was about to speak when her mother walked up to her and slapped her. She was in tears, and without waiting any further, I kicked her out of the party in front of all these people who either knew or cared about her. I had warned everyone against helping her with anything. She left the party and went to her young boyfriend's place. Eric tried to calm her down and took her in, just like we had decided. I asked him to take as many pictures and videos as he can of her and both of them together, doing all kinds of raunchy things. I knew where exactly I wanted to use it. She had an important meeting upcoming in her office, thanks to her colleagues who felt bad for me and shared this information with me. She was busy preparing for the presentation all week. It was the day when she was to present and speak in front of about 3,000 people from her office. She went to the stage and started presenting. She said that she put so much effort in making a video to make it simpler for people to understand. And she motioned to play the video where she is in her baby doll dress and slowly taking her clothes off. Her boyfriend was assigned the task of switching the video last night when she was asleep. She was shocked and horrified as the inappropriate video began playing instead. The audience gasped in disbelief, leaving her feeling utterly humiliated and desperately searching for a way to salvage the situation. She was desperately trying to stop the video from playing. She ran across the stage, quickly getting off the stage and trying to shut it down. She was immediately fired for ruining the reputation of their company and causing significant financial losses. Her actions not only damaged the trust of their clients, but also tarnished the company's image in the industry, making it difficult to recover from the negative impact she had created. She stormed off feeling humiliated and went to her boyfriend's house to confront him. He acted as if he knew nothing and he had no idea something like this would have happened. He blamed me and made her believe that maybe it was my doing, her cunning and jealous husband, who could not live with the fact that she left him for someone as handsome as him. He said that he knew exactly what he could do to make her feel better. She trusted him and followed him in his car. He drove her to an expensive hotel and booked a suite. She instantly believed that he was not behind it. They made love to each other and fell asleep. When she was sleeping, he took away all her credit cards and her cash. I asked him to leave her with nothing and strand her in an expensive place with nothing she could pay with. When she got up, she tried to look for him, and when she couldn't find him anywhere, she tried to call him. His phone was unreachable, and there was no sign of him anywhere. In the morning, the hotel staff were pounding on the hotel room that Audrey was in. When she opened it, they informed her that the credit card they used to book the room had bounced and she had to pay for a month's stay. She was flabbergasted that the room was booked under her name for a month. She said that she was not the one who booked, and she was waiting for her boyfriend to come back to clarify things. They gave her time till 10 a.m., or else she was to pay and leave. She tried calling her boyfriend, and there was no way of reaching him. At around 10 a.m., she was at the reception trying to explain to them that it was not her fault and she had no money to pay for the previous night. I walked in and stood beside her at the reception. I looked at her and gave her a sarcastic smile. Her face turned pale as she realized what had happened. She understood that her boyfriend had been in cahoots with me in all of this and that. She was now left with no husband, no daughter, no boyfriend, no job, and no friends. She begged me that it was a mistake and that she did not love her boyfriend and was just using him for sex. She was blinded by lust and wanted to get back with me. She got carried away, and was not thinking straight. She could not live without me and Molly. Molly said that she was ashamed that Audrey was her mother and wanted to have nothing to do with her. So I told her that she had fooled us enough, and she can leave us alone. I told her to get ready for the divorce trial in court. I had all the evidence to prove her infidelity and would be presenting it in court. What I did not tell her was that I am also trying to get the media involved so that they cover each and every detail of this court case for public humiliation. I would make her so famous for cheating that it would get difficult for her to even walk the roads without getting recognized and reminded of her wrongdoings. We had a joint bank account for our finances. I started noticing that our shared fund was declining rapidly. I blocked Audrey out of all the assets that we owned. I blocked her from using all the joint cards, accounts, and removed her name from all the properties. I already had access to her power of attorney, so it wasn't difficult for me. I wanted her to know that cheating on me and hiding the truth about Molly was something she had to pay for. I also decided to seek legal advice and consult a divorce attorney to protect my rights and ensure that I am granted Molly's custody. It was important for me to take the necessary steps to safeguard my financial stability and hold Audrey accountable for her actions. So this is all that I had done to my wife, who not only cheated me, but also my daughter all her life. I know some of you might not agree with what I had done, but I could not let her walk away after ruining all of lives. I would like you guys to share any similar experiences that you had and how you dealt with it. I would also like your support and your comments on how to handle and deal with my teenage daughter going forward. I want to be there for her as much as possible and not let her feel that I would ever abandon her like her mother. I will keep you guys updated on the divorce trial and how things turn out to be. Trust me, I will make sure that it gets messy and humiliating for her. Thank you all for being with me so far. Update. I was able to get a few friends to help me get in touch with a few reporters to cover the divorce trial. As the trial proceeded, my lawyer showed the evidence of Audrey's infidelity not only during Molly's birth, but also for the past 1 year. We had Richard and Eric take the stand and accept that they had in fact been involved with Audrey in a romantic relationship. Their testimonies were crucial in establishing Audrey's pattern of infidelity, strengthening our case against her. The courtroom was filled with tension as the truth unfolded, leaving Audrey with little room to defend herself against the mounting evidence. When Molly was called to the stand to decide who she would like to take custody of Molly, she, without waiting for a second, stated that she wanted to live with me. She told the judges that I had always been there for her more than her mother. She did not care if I was not her biological father, as I loved her as my own. Listening to this brought tears in my eyes, and I knew that the bond I shared with Molly was thicker than that of blood. Audrey tried to defend herself, stating that she was her biological mother, and it was only right for Molly to stay with her. She also demanded a hefty amount in child support from me once Molly started living with her. She lied that Molly was a very demanding child and that she would get upset if her demands were not met. After careful deliberation, the judge ruled in favor of me winning Molly's custody. I made sure that this was the hot topic in all of the newspapers, with Audrey's best picture posted on each and every one of them. I wanted her to face all the humiliation that she could for using Molly just to get some money from me. She kept reaching new lows, which I never imagined was possible. In all this while, her lawyer had left her side, so she was defending herself as she could not afford a lawyer. No PR company or magazine wanted to hire her after her face was plastered on every tabloid. She was doomed for life. Even the models that she was able to blackmail previously had left her side and cornered themselves from her. Seeing her in this state, I couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and satisfaction. It was a stark reminder that karma always finds its way back to those who manipulate and deceive others. After the trial was over, Molly and I had decided to move on from Audrey. We decided to renovate our house and throw away anything that belonged to Audrey. We wanted nothing to do with her. Even a single thing that reminded us of her needs to be out of the door. I was happy to see that Molly did not need a mother or mother's love and validation anymore. She was growing up to be an independent and confident woman who did not need anyone to make her feel loved. Seeing Molly gave me the courage to gather myself from all the events that were not less than a roller coaster ride in my life. I have now decided to focus on myself and be the best father that I can be for Molly. You can take the person out of their past selves, but you cannot take the past self out of them. I'm sure you are wondering what I'm talking about. Well, what I am saying is that you can try and change the person because you see a bright future with them or in them, but if that person is not used to the change, it is impossible to expect them to do as you have expected. I was once in that position where I saw this lovely lady, even though she was not perfect and not doing well in life generally. But I saw a future with her. I saw my potential missing rib, you know. I was even willing to take the risk and build a long-lasting relationship, but I guess I had counted chickens before they hatched. Do you think it's possible to change someone with a bad, or must I say a shaming past? If there is anyone who once came off with a similar problem, how did you deal with it? Let me get on with what I got myself into thinking I was a good Samaritan and a good husband who just wanted to make his wife's life perfect and help her make new memories so she can leave the past where it belongs. But they say once it gets along with your blood, it's hard moving on from it. I am 38, am naturally a down-to-earth and quiet kind of guy, which may be the reason why all my relationships don't last for too long. Most ladies would say a guy like me is too soft. But my advice would be, never take for granted a quiet and reserved guy because once they have had enough, they explode, and when they do that, you won't like the outcome. Quiet guys are more dangerous than loud ones. Anyway, I met this lady at one of the nightclubs in my hometown in Newcastle. I had gone there to clear my head after the presentation I had done to get sponsors for the business I wanted to start in the farming industry. It had been a very stressful day, so I needed 1 or 2 cold beers to quench the thirst and try not to stress about the presentation. So I saw this lady. She looked really stressed and intoxicated. She was so beautiful. Even a child would see what she was going through the most. So I asked the bartender if he knew the lady, and he told me that he didn't. All he knew was that the lady came to the club when they opened, and she had never gone anywhere since then. I wondered what she was going through that would make her go to the club at 12 p.m. till late. I took it upon myself to go to her table. I thought maybe she needed someone to talk to. I mean, everyone needs someone to vent to when they are going through something, right? And it gets much better if you vent to a stranger because you know that a stranger would never share your issues or laugh at your issue. So I wanted to be one of those good listeners who don't go to a lady to take advantage of her mystery. She was gorgeous and everything, yes, but she didn't need someone who would try their luck on her. Then she ended up making wrong decisions because she acted with emotions. So when I got to her table, my mouth got dry. I got suddenly scared to speak to her, but I had assured myself that I was just going to ask if she was okay. Then I would leave her alone. I greeted her. She looked wasted, so I joined her on her table. She gave me a hard time thinking I was rizzing her. I had to assure her that I only wanted to check if she was doing okay. She then spoke a lot of things I didn't even catch because she was too intoxicated. I stayed with her as she was busy talking. Her words were slurring. I couldn't understand most of the things she had said. Later on, it was time for me to go back home since I had only come to the club for a few drinks, but I didn't want to leave her alone. Some people with no conscience would take advantage of her. So I took her to my small car that I had inherited from my late father. The moment she got on a passenger seat, she just dozed off. It concerned me that such a respectful and beautiful woman would go through something bad or heartbreaking to a point that she would rather find solace in booze. I took her to my room. Well, at home, I had a 2-room house outside the big house. So I took her to my room and left her in my bed. I didn't want to be seen as a pervert, so I went to the big house and disturbed my grandmother from her sleep, which confused her because she had never seen me sleeping inside the big house. I had moved out of the house when I turned 16 years. I told her that I wanted food, but I know she didn't believe me because she came with the blanket and went back to bed. The next day, I went to my room to check on the stranger, and I found her looking stressed and shaken. Maybe she thought she had been abducted, but I would never do something like that. I tried explaining to her what had happened the previous night, but she kept panicking, so I made her water with sugar to calm her nerves down. After a while, she calmed down and she told me that she wanted to go back home, meaning I had to take her back to the nightclub so she could get her car. Mind you, that time I had to go to work, but I didn't mind, so I took her. She asked for my name and numbers and told me that she wanted to thank me for the gentle gesture when she gets free. I didn't mind. In my mind, I told myself that maybe she just wanted to say thank you. Only then we would never see each other again. Since that fateful night and morning, I couldn't stop thinking about her. She really looked like someone who was going through the most. and I wanted to be there for her. I wanted her to feel safe and resort to nightclubs whenever she faces difficulties. You know when you think a lot about someone that you end up dreaming about them? Well, that was me. I think I was in love. I fell in love at first sight. Or was I fooling myself? She really looked like someone who had the whole world on her shoulders. A week later, I received a call from the lady. Well, I'm calling her lady because I didn't even get her name the other day. So I received a call from her and asked to take me out as a token of appreciation for what I had done the other night. I would never say no to freebies, so I told her that I would be free during the weekend, then we agreed to meet at some restaurant. The weekend came, I was super nervous. I didn't know why because the lady didn't say it was a date, but still I was nervous. Maybe I was nervous because I would get a chance to look and talk to her sober self. Not the drunk lady from the other night, and the one I dropped at the club in the morning who was going through a hangover. So when I got into the restaurant, she had already ordered our drinks. Not that I minded, but I don't trust already ordered drinks. What if she had spiked my drink? But that was delusional of me, right? Okay, so the date, or must I say the token of appreciation date, went well. She told me that she was going a lot, and that's why she was intoxicated. I had already seen that. I just wanted to know what she was going through. My heart was longing for her, you know. I wanted to be by her side. I couldn't understand what was happening to me because I had never felt like that. Not after what my ex-wife had done to me in our relationship. The lady told me that her name was Elizabeth, but she grew up being called Betty, 37. We started communicating a lot. She was a very free-spirited person, but she liked flashy life. Time passed as we were getting closer to each other every day. I had invited her to meet my grandma because I was sure that she would have loved to meet someone in my life. We were not dating that time, but I had already pictured my future with her. The meeting went well. My grandma kept asking if she had known her from somewhere. Obviously, there are people who look alike or have resemblance to other people, but that doesn't mean it would be them or their relative, right? Only if I had known that my grandma knew something. I respect love. It makes you ignore important signs and warnings. The more we got closer, the more she loosened up and was free to talk about anything. So one day she poured it out to me. I was happy that she had finally decided to open up. As she was explaining what she was going through the night I first saw her, I caught something. And that thing was that she had lost her husband a year ago, so when that happened, she lost herself to a point that she found solace in booze. Time passed and she started sleeping with younger guys because she was feeling lonely, and those young guys made her feel young and alive. I know I should have taken that as a warning and ran for my life, but my heart wanted what it wanted, and it was her. I didn't want to judge her, because what we sometimes go through or have been through do not define who we are and where we are heading. I wanted to give her a chance to experience and feel true love. Do you think I was fooling myself? She also told me that she loved rough sex. That one took me off guard because I didn't know if I would meet her expectations when it came to being intimate, but I was willing to try anything she wanted so that she would be satisfied and not go back to those young boys she once found comfort from. A couple of months passed and we officialized our relationship. Betty was a good, smart, and business-minded woman, so having her in my life was a great blessing. She gave me so many business ideas. I was glad to have her in my corner. I had got the farm deal and everything was looking bright for me. Our love was a bliss. I don't know if it was great because we were on a honeymoon phase, but we were happy. We then decided to get married after we had dated for 6 months. I was the happiest man on earth. My heart was full. During those 6 months, I had rebuilt my grandma's house. Then after our wedding, we joined our accounts to buy a house. Not thinking about the future outcome. It was really foolish of me, right? Our lives were great. 2 months before our marriage, we found out that she was pregnant. I was over the moon, man. I couldn't wait to be a father. Betty made me happy. She respected me as her husband. She was not the person she once told me she was. I knew that she would have made a great mother to our child. I had everything planned out. It was like I had written down my future plans with her, but it was just wishes and dreams. But I guess dreams are meant to stay in dreamland and not make it to the real world. She made me believe that she was the one, my life, the person I would spend my whole life with and share a successful journey with. Not knowing that I had counted so many chickens before they hatched. Fear female species. A couple of months later, she gave birth to a very adorable baby boy. The baby looked so much like me you would swear I had denied him. Lol. He was a spitting image of myself, and I fell so much in love. I mean, if you get a boy as a child, you should be happy because that boy will be the one taking charge and responsibilities of your empire. They are the ones who are responsible for growing your legacy. What I noticed about Betty after she had given birth was that she didn't look happy about the baby. I don't know, maybe I was delusional, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that she didn't want or loved our child. She was off, and that made me worried because I once asked her how she felt about being a mother. The only answer I got was her shrugging her shoulders, meaning she didn't know or didn't want to answer. Our 1-year anniversary came. I had planned to cook for her and allow her to rest since she had been taking care of our child and the house, but she did all those house chores before she decided to have an urgent journey that she needed to take. I didn't understand the sudden travels, especially when the sun was about to dawn. I didn't want to ask anything. I mean, since she was a doctor, her job was sometimes, well, not sometimes, but always in demand. Her behavior went on until one day, when I came back from work, she had left the child alone. I didn't understand why she would do that. I mean, she could have called. I started having doubts about her. When I confronted her about the issue, she told me that she thought she was going to come back earlier. Life, what the hell? If she thought she was going to get back early, she would have taken the child with her. What pissed me off more was the fact that she didn't even bother to call me and tell me that she was going somewhere, and there was no one who was going to look after our child. The accident she did really made me doubt her. I knew and saw that she was acting awkward and off around our child, as much as she had given birth to him. But she didn't have that excitement of being a new mother. She didn't give herself that chance to get to know her child. She was taking care of him, yes, but she didn't have that affection and attention to give our child. All she cared about was her urgent meetings that suddenly pop up, either before the sun dawns or in the evening during the time that would be supposed to have been a family time. Things got out of hand, and I had started getting tired of her. One day I came back from work early. The child was with the nanny. After that incident, I decided to look for a nanny because it showed that my child didn't have a mother but a person who just gave birth to her. I confronted her about her behavior and she just busted out, which was really alarming because why would you burst out about something you were not guilty of? Did I really trap myself? Her meetings went on till she didn't even bother, notifying where she was going. Sometimes I would find her already gone. I didn't care anymore, but it was heartbreaking to see my wife acting like that. If I was a Christian, I would have said she was possessed by demons, but I know she wasn't, and everything she was doing, she did it sober-minded. I had to step up and be the mother and a father to our child. Sometimes I would ask my grandmother to babysit my child because his mother had decided to act like a teenager that was going through an adolescent stage. I once went to her workplace to check on her as the good husband that I was. I had thought she was going to change, I had that hope that she would wake up and smell the coffee and realize that she had a family that needed her. When I once got into her workplace, I was told that she had taken leave from work. Her reason to take a leave of absence from work was she was going on a vacation with her family, so she needed some time off. I was so shocked about that reveal because I knew nothing about it. So I then decided that I had to make a plan because surely she was cheating. We didn't even reach our 2 years of marriage. We were still 1 year and few months, but already she was living another life outside our marriage. I wondered where she had gone because the reason for her leave off work didn't make any sense, since to me she kept saying she was going to work, or let me just say she kept disappearing, and I had thought she was going to work. I hoped and prayed that she didn't think she would make me a fool for the longest time. I may have been a fool to her, or she may have seen me as a fool. But little did she know that you cannot fool a fool, and it doesn't know you are fooling them. So I then took it upon myself to tail her wherever she went. It was creepy and weird, I know. But I had to do something, so I would find out what had been up to that had made her lie at work. It was really hard for my son because children feel or sense when there is tension in the house or when they no longer feel loved. As much I had tried to be there for him, but I couldn't be 100% present because I also had work and the farm that I had recently bought. I tailed Betty every day whenever she went out, and one thing I had noticed, was that her stop was only one, and it was in some apartments in Washington. I was now acting like a psychopath because I kept on following her, whenever I had knocked off early from work. Unfortunately, after a week of following her, she noticed that I was following her and got pretty angry. She threw shades at me, telling me that I didn't trust her, and she wanted out of our marriage because she couldn't be with someone who doesn't trust her. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to say anything, but guilt was eating her up because she had been caught. And I was not willing to let everything go without finding out who she was visiting at those apartments that had made her lie to work and stop doing her wifely duties. My work had not yet started. There was a lot of digging I had to do. I couldn't allow her to make me a fool, not after what my ex-fiancé had done to me. I know back then I was still naive, and she got someone better than me, but it pissed me off that she had to wait till I proposed to her for her to cheat on me. That was the time I had vowed to myself to never ever allow another woman to make a fool out of me just because I knew how to express my love to them. Then they saw someone who they could take for a ride. My whole being craved for panel beating. Betty a little. Maybe she would regain her memory and remember that she had a family that needed her once she woke up on a deathbed. What she did showed that she had no respect for me and our marriage because I knew very well that she does not have any relatives who live in those Washington apartments. So one day she came home from wherever she was and told me that she was moving out and she wanted a divorce. Such a nerve she had. She really thought she was going to show me love and made me used to it. Then she would just up and leave just because she wanted her freedom. I told her that she would get a divorce over my dead body because she can't be toying with my heart like how she did. And when she felt like she had had enough, she would up and leave. I wanted to destroy her before she even brought the divorce papers, but first I had to find out who she was seeing because whoever it is that she was dating was the reason why Betty acted like she did, and even thought of divorce. A week passed after she had told me that she wanted a divorce, and I obviously declined. So I bugged her phone to monitor wherever she was going. And doing that process, I found out that she was spending more time in that apartment. So I decided that I would bust her so I can get enough evidence that she was really cheating. I also wanted to find out who she was cheating with that had made forget that she was a mother before anything. I monitored her cell phone until I saw that every day at 5 in the afternoon she goes to that apartment. So that day I had followed where my phone was telling me the location of Betty's cell phone. When I got there, she had just come back from work, so I continued checking my phone, and I found myself in apartment number 9. I knocked, and the door was opened by a young man. If I would estimate his age would be between 19 and 23. My mind was telling me that maybe my tracking app had taken me to an incorrect apartment number. My conscience kept telling me that she was there, though I couldn't bring it to myself that she would actually be dating or cheating on me with a child. What caught my attention was when my wife came to the door and called the young man my love. I couldn't believe it, you know. My mouth got dry, my heart was beating so fast, I even tried comforting myself by saying maybe it was a misunderstanding or maybe the child was hers. She had kept him a secret or she was dating the father of the young man. As if that was not enough, the young man called her by a pet name. Right there, and then it was confirmed that indeed the young man was dating Betty. I have never felt so disgusted and humiliated like that in my life. I knew she was unfaithful to our marriage, but I had thought that if she was unfaithful, she would actually go for a child who looked more than 10 years younger than her. I felt disrespected and hurt because I kept asking myself, what must have I done wrong for her to practice infidelity with a small boy? I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it made my knees weak whenever I would think of it. As if that was not enough, the nerve Betty had when she saw me standing on the doorstep of a boy's apartment. Well, I was not sure if it was the boy's apartment or it was hers, and I didn't care much about it. What I cared about was the fact that she asked me what I was doing at the apartment. She even called the cops on me, saying I was trespassing, and I got dumped on the spot, saying I should expect her lawyer who would be delivering divorce papers on her behalf. How wicked can she be, huh? A week after I had witnessed my wife's infidelity, I was emotionally overstressed to a point that I had even forgotten and neglected my son. I know it was selfish of me to weep over a grown woman, but it did hurt because I had invested my love, my heart, and my life to the relationship, only to be cheated on with a child. Betty didn't respect me as a man who saved her from her miserable self. I knew she once had flings with young boys after she had lost her husband, but I had thought that she was going through a moment of weakness and loneliness, and she used young boys as part of her grieving process, not knowing that it somehow became a habit to her. I remember when she told me that she loved rough and commanding intimacy, but I thought I had tried my best in that department. Or didn't I? I took my son to my grandmother's house during weekends, because during those days the nanny would not be coming in. I couldn't take care of my son while I was going through an emotional detachment. My comfort was alcohol for that period and burying myself to work to keep myself and mind occupied. I wanted to avenge myself for playing with my feelings like that. I couldn't allow her to just move on, date a young guy and dump me like a piece of use a tea bag. I had vowed to myself that I would make sure she suffers, not because I was a bitter husband who didn't take the breakup well, as most people would say. But let's remember the heart was hurting, so in order for it to heal, I had to avenge it. A mind can forget what had been done to it, but never think the heart will also forget. It will always be hungry for vengeance. A week later, I received a call from Betty's lawyer asking for a meeting with me. So I asked her to come through to my workplace because there was no way I was going to go to her office. I was not ready to sign the divorce papers, not because I didn't want to let go of her or I was scared to lose something. No, I was not scared of anything. And the good thing in all of that was that we were not married in joint custody. So when I was ready to sign the papers, I would and I would not lose anything. The only thing I wanted to do before I signed the divorce papers was to make her life miserable, to the point that she would miss her dead husband and regret the day she decided to find comfort in young boys. After the meeting with Betty's lawyer, I decided to pick myself up and be present to my son. I mean, I couldn't grow up thinking that his parents had abandoned him or hated him. Everything I did was for my son's best interest. I couldn't allow myself to burden my grandmother like that. She was already dealing with her old age, so bringing a child every weekend for her to babysit was too much. I fixed myself and spent most of my weekends at my grandmother's house with my son. I couldn't be happier, having to spend my time with the people I loved. Since it was only my grandmother and I, and an additional member who was my son in the family, was all I could have ever asked for. My grandmother was happy that I was fixing myself and spending more time with my son than with the bottle. One day I went to Betty's workplace to find out why she did what she did and why she chose to go back to the person she had worked hard to behind. I needed answers, though we were not going to get back together, but I needed some sort of closure so that I would be able to move on and live my life for myself and my son, along with my grandmother. I found her in her office, with her Ben 10. The kind of look she gave me when she saw me coming into her office was the look that would make a person that you do not want to see them or you hate them. I greeted them and asked to talk to Betty on the side, but she flatly refused. But her boy was kind enough to leave the room so we could be alone. She told me that she had nothing to say to me. I didn't understand her because if I could refresh my mind, I had never mistreated her or hurt her in any way. The only wrong I did was loving her and giving her my all, so that was the thank you I got after everything we had been through. Her behavior started changing after she gave birth. When I asked her why she did what she did, and why had gone back to the old Elizabeth, the one she had told herself that she didn't want to go back to because she was not her real self when she did that, which I gladly helped her with. We found therapists and taught her to open up whenever she was going through something. So she told me that dating the young boy didn't mean she had gone back to her old self. What she did it for her own happiness. And I and my son were not giving her any happiness. She told me in the face that I was boring her, in bed and as a person in general. She kept spewing a lot of bullshit to a point that I slapped her while she was still spewing how much she played me in my heart. There was one thing that made me lose control, and I found myself choking her when she mentioned that she didn't want our child and called him names. I got super furious. I never want to hear anyone talk or speak nonsense about my son. I would never think twice to attack that person, even if it is the Queen of England herself. A year later, my son was going to be turning 1 year old, which made me happy because he had grown so much, and he never gave me any problems. The space of not having a mother in his life didn't change anything, but it made us bond. Plus, he looked a lot like me. He was my little replica, which made a cherry on top. I had taken a break from dating or seeing women species because I didn't want to involve myself with any female. My only priority was my son. So I had planned to take him and my grandmother out to celebrate my son's first birthday. I decided to take my grandmother and my son on a weekend away to New York. I had never taken my grandmother out of Newcastle, so it was time to show her the world. She was skeptical at first, but she eventually agreed. My son enjoyed his birthday, and my grandmother couldn't stop talking about the trip when we got back to Newcastle. My heart was at ease, and I wanted nothing more than to see my son and my grandmother happy. So the day we got back from New York, which was on a Sunday, when we got back, we found Betty at my grandmother's house. My blood boiled, because I didn't know what she was doing at my grandmother's house. The lady had to leave her for days. I wanted to murder or paralyze her on the spot because she was making me angry. She said that she came to wish our son a happy birthday, which really surprised me because I had thought she didn't care and didn't want our son. I wondered why she came back after a year of abandoning our son, but I couldn't ask her that. My grandmother, with her welcoming heart, welcomed her in. That day, she had spent the night at my grandmother's house. I hated even her scent. It made me angry and want to puke. That time, I had sold our marital home, so I had moved to Grandma's house. I couldn't be in the same room as her for a long time, so I excused myself and went to my room because there was no way I would have survived another minute with Delilah in my presence. One of us had to go, so I decided to be a gentleman enough to leave them and took my son with me. A few hours later, she came to my room saying she wanted to talk and told me how much she regretted leaving her home. Do you think she was sincere? I didn't believe her apology, but for the sake of my peace and my son's peace, I forgave her and told her that I didn't want her back since our time had ended. She then told me that her young boy had dumped her and left her in so many debts that she had to pay. She had also got suspended from work because she would sometimes go to work intoxicated or hungover. I didn't know what she had expected that I would say or do after she had told me all those things. So I resorted to just telling her that the only thing I would help her with was to give her her share of the house, since we had both contributed to purchasing it, so it was the only fair decision I took. Since she had nothing, she thought of coming back to her doormat because even the time I had found her, she was going through the same thing. The only difference was that she had money and she was using young men for comfort. But this time, she had fallen for a young boy. And the young boy showed her that he was in it for love, but for benefits. So he benefited, and when he had got enough, he dumped her and left her dry. Well, that is what you get for dating people younger than you, so I didn't feel sorry for her. And I was also not happy about her downgrade. I spoke to my grandmother and told her that I was thinking of applying for joint custody for our child, so that I would get a chance to see if Betty was really willing to mend her relationship with our son and cover the time she had lost when she was all over Ben 10. A few weeks later, she came to my grandmother's house when she was dropping off our son. She started apologizing again and asked us to fix our relationship, telling me that our son deserved to grow up in a home with both his parents. The only polite answer I managed to give her was that the joint custody of our son was the only thing that had joined us. I wanted nothing to do with her. I was doing just fine. Was I wrong to deal with the issue the way I did? Please give me some advice.